Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. I don't think anyone would like it if the keys to your house were stolen and someone else was living there, which is exactly the situation our OP faced in the first story. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Crazy mom steals son's home. Backstory. My grandparents on my father's side are the greediest people I ever met. They wouldn't give a single dollar for my dad in college, and he had to survive on his own. They picked favorites towards my father's brother, Entitled Uncle. Entitled Uncle was given everything in life since my grandparents were hella rich. My father would bump heads with his brother, but did care about him and his parents. But my father isn't that innocent in all regards. More on that later. When my dad got a decent job and home, my grandparents wanted to get him married. This was in India, so arranged marriages were most common. They eventually found my mom and her wealthy parents. For the wedding, my grandparents didn't contribute a thing and forced my mom's parents to pay for it. Entitled grandma abused my mom during it and was controlling on her life. My mom described it like hell. My mom dealt with the abuse from my dad's family for the longest time until 6 years ago. So shortly after I was born in India, my family moved to the U.S. My dad owned a flat back in India. He would allow people to rent it out and get money like a landlord. But since he moved to the U.S., he couldn't get the money instantaneously anymore, so he asked my entitled grandfather to get the money and send him the money through his account. My dumb grandfather took the money and gave my dad the crumbs of the actual money. My dad's now PO'd, of course, and asks him, "Where the hell is my money?" Entitled grandfather replied, "Oh, it's just so you can pay me back over the years I helped you in your life." Again, they didn't do crap to help my dad. This was only the start of the crap storm that was going to come. Eventually, my spoiled entitled uncle finally got an okay job. The problem was the distance. He asked entitled grandma where he can stay. Entitled grandma suggested that he can live at the flat my dad owns rent-free. So uncle starts living at the house, and eventually my dad realizes the money he usually got from entitled grandpa was gone. My dad calls out entitled grandpa, no response. Then he calls out entitled grandma. She picks up, here's the conversation that goes, "Dad. Hey, Mom, why isn't the money from Dad come in?" EGM. "Well, your brother is living in it." Dad. "Oh, then so is he going to wire me the payment?" EGM. "No." Dad. "Why not?" EGM. "Well, he is your brother after all, so he doesn't have to pay." Dad. "I know he has a decent job, and he hasn't done me favors in the past when I asked him." EGM. "He's only starting out. I thought he needed it." They start arguing, and it went bloody. Entitled grandma used the family card, and my dad just brought up how they were picking favorites. This led to my dad kicking out his brother. Not long after that, entitled grandparents stole the keys of the flat and blocked communication with Dad, and let their brat move in once more. My dad left the keys at my mom's parents' place for safekeeping. He found out by my mom's sister, my aunt, everything. This is what made my father open his eyes to see the truth of how bad his family was. Also, how bad he was towards my mom. I like to call this his redemption arc as a husband and father. He was tired of the bullcrap, took the next flight to India, and prepared. My dad brought he and my brother at the time, since my grandparents on my mom's side wanted to see me again. They worked with my mom's family to hide the fact that he was in India and going to get back his flat. He left me and my brother at my grandparents' place and went to get the keys back. The gate officer that was guarding the flat recognized that my father was the owner. He got extra keys from the officer since he manages the flats in that area. He marches into his flat and opens the door. Entitled uncle was sitting on his butt watching some cricket. He was surprised, but my dad said these words in a cold tone: "Get out." Entitled uncle soon left. My dad sent entitled uncle stuff to my great uncle since they were close and told them it was for entitled uncle. My great uncle knew how spoiled entitled uncle was, so he gladly took it. Of course, the entitled parents start blasting my dad, saying he betrayed the family and how selfish are you? We stayed in India for another week and left. My dad cut those craps right out of his life, and recently entitled uncle got married and didn't even try to invite his brother. But now the entitled grandparents are doing the same bullcrap that they did to my mom, and my entitled aunt threatened to divorce him and leave with the baby. The entitled grandparents claim that my mom did something to make her act this way, but she didn't even say a word. So yeah, that's the story. And our second story. Entitled Dinosaur tries to go to the pool. Cast. Me is me, C is coworker, EG is entitled grandmother, EM entitled mother, EF entitled father. Alright, so this just happened. So buckle up. So C and I are lifeguards. And the way our company works is HOAs contract our company, and our company sends lifeguards to work at the neighborhood pools. So this specific pool is in a very nice neighborhood, and the people here, while all rich, are pretty humble. But also being in this area, I was expecting a wild Karen to show up at some point, and lo and behold, it happens. So our pool doesn't have pool tags, but a fingerprint scanner that unlocks the magnet. So we could see that the door wasn't opening for this lady, and she waves to us at the gate, so C and I head over. EG. The fingerprint isn't working. Can you let us in, please? Me. Sorry, ma'am, we can't let you in if the fingerprint doesn't work. EG. But my grandchildren wanted to come to the pool, and my daughter has the fingerprint, but is away on vacation. I'm babysitting them, so how do you expect me to let them into the pool? Me. Ma'am, we're still not allowed to. At other pools that have keys or key fobs, if they don't work or don't have one, we're not supposed to let them in. Even though this is a fingerprint, it's still the same concept. EG. Is the HOA here? Most likely going to see if the HOA would just tell us to let them in. C. We don't think so, but you're more than welcome to schedule an appointment with them. EG. Who's the HOA? I want to speak with them. Me. I don't know, I've never met them. C has because she lives in the neighborhood, but has only met her once. EG. You don't know your HOA? How do you work here then? Me. We're not employed by the HOA. They employ our company, and our company employs us. At this point, C and I were having our resting bee faces. EG. You know what? I'm going to call my daughter. Proceeds to call daughter. Yeah, they're not letting us in. They said we need a fingerprint, but you're out of town. She was on speaker. EM. I told you to get a fingerprint done when I left. C and I, trying to hide smug grins. But that wasn't the end of it. EM. Who's not letting you in? Who are they? EG. You're on speaker, they can hear you. C. We're lifeguards. EM. Well, I'm not there. Can't you let them in? We explained to her again the thing about not letting people in without fingerprints. EM starts getting a little agitated, but I'm not there. I can send a picture of my driver's license so you can see my address. You can see where I live. My mother can show you to our house. I don't even want to start going anywhere outside this gate, let alone her house. We're not allowed to leave the pool also. I pay thousands of dollars to live there, and you can't let them use the pool? I can hear her talking in the background to someone. EM. The lifeguards won't let them in. She repeats this 2 times, and C and I can hear it's a man she's talking to, most likely her husband. EF. What's going on? He sounds absolutely furious. Give me the phone. Who are you? He's directing the questions to us. C and I look at each other, obviously very uncomfortable at the thought of giving our names to strangers. He asks again, still very angry. C gives her name, so I can't let her take all the blame, so I give my name too. EF. Name and name? I'll make sure you two don't have a job. They hang up, and the grandmother's still there. EG. He was very angry. C and me, we can see that. Anyways, have a good day. And the sad part is, one of the 2 kids who was a little boy was calling to us while walking away. Sorry, so sorry. And he was waving, and we felt so bad for those kids. I called my supervisor to give him a heads up, but he told us to fill an incident report because they might get a call from them within a week and they'll want to know what happened. But our supervisor calmed us down and said we'd be fine. We did our jobs perfectly. And our last story. Entitled tourists demand we speak Russian. A little backstory. I live in an Eastern European country which has been invaded by Russia many times over my country's history. And we still have a large population, about 30% of people who identify themselves as Russians, not my country's nationality. Most of the country speaks Russian as a second language, but the younger generations speak English, and a good percentage of them don't speak Russian at all. I've had many interactions with people who've been living here for decades and still refuse to learn our local language. Tourists, for the most part, are understanding and try to speak English or very simple Russian to interact. Now to the story. I used to work in a very popular restaurant in the capital. We served local cuisine and a super large selection of local beers on tap, so we were a popular destination for tourists and locals equally. One day, somewhere between lunch and dinner time, a group of 5 or 6 older Russian ladies came in, were very rude when we greeted them in our usual hello in our language and English, went to seat themselves, and a waiter went over to serve them. The waiter speaks perfect Russian, and he had a habit of deciding if he spoke it to a customer or not. I have many stories about this guy and the a-hole he was, and planning on sharing them sometime. And he, seeing the ladies were being rude, acted like he didn't understand a word. We all heard the ladies starting to yell when he gave them the menus in English. We only had them in our native language in English, and he saw them standing there, his best server smile on his face, as the ladies were yelling profanities. He politely smiled and said, "I'll give you a moment to decide," then continued to go around and telling every staff member to act like we don't speak Russian either. The ladies were speaking amongst themselves of how rude it was the server doesn't speak Russian in a country that belongs to Russia. How dare we? This got us all mad, and we continued to just smile and wave whenever the ladies came to speak with us. This escalated to the point they were yelling profanities in full volume and throwing menus and napkins all over as they were leaving. The server went up to them, acting confused and asking if there was a problem, to which one of them went close up to him and yelled in his face something amongst the lines of, "Your mother should have raised all of you better. Not speaking Russian in Russia is a crime. Your boss will hear about this, and you'll get fired." As they were halfway to the door, the server grinned and said in perfect Russian, "Say hello to the motherland, you old witches. Don't dare come back here again." The look on their faces were priceless. P.S. Nobody got fired. Our boss doesn't speak Russian and doesn't care for ignorant people. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.